We stirred up our product. I put some in a smaller pail, about enough to do this job. We have about 15, well, let's say 20 roughly square feet. Got a lot of little corners and edges to do, so that usually takes up a little more material than you're expecting. Measured out the appropriate amount. Normally you would have a single container, would go in a whole bucket. If you measure stuff out, you have to measure it out by weight. But this amount will go into about 1 gallon. This is actually 8 pounds, 2 ounces of product. This is the hardener. We're adding hardener into here. You add the entire contents of the hardener to this. Normally you would have to add a little bit of water to get the product to go through your hopper. If you do, that's okay. They're both water-based. It won't really hurt anything. And we're going to mix again with the high viscosity mixer. This time a little smaller one because we're in a 1 gallon pail. That big one for the 5 gallon pails would have taken the whole pail. So we're mixing down these. This has already been mixed up before, so we don't really have to do too much stirring to it. But what we want is to get that product mixed. We have a pretty thorough mix on this. Knock the extra off. And there you have it. Mixed product ready to go in our hopper. Okay, we're back. Got my hopper. Have my non-metallic, non-iron, non-rusting scoop. Just a nice little spaghetti spoon, all made out of plastic. When I first test a material, I don't fill up the hopper all the way. I put enough in there to make sure it's flowing, it's sticking down to the edges a little bit, so it looks like it'll flow well. Okay, here we go. We've got our air, we've got our test batch. Again, we're just checking this to make sure it'll flow through the hopper. Oh, pressure's way low. I was wondering what's going on there. Want to set your pressure. With the fine stone between probably 10 and 15, we're going to try it at 15 right there. Okay, we got a little more pressure than we want. Run down to about 12. Okay, you can hear the spattering kind of a noise. That's what you're after. The higher the pressure, the finer your texture is going to be. There we go. That's about the sound you want to hear. Need to add more product because I was only running a test batch there, so our flow is good. Adding the hardener makes it a little more moist. Product flows through there very nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up this hopper so we can run this whole job. Again, I'm using my non-ferrous, non-rusting scoop. Normally I use a stainless steel one, but I didn't have it with me today, so we're using a nice blue spaghetti spoon. We've got angles here perpendicular to each other. If you shoot directly at the corner, you'll run into problems with it because it'll build up on the edges and it won't actually connect to the corner. So we try to get as vertical as we can here to this top edge, perpendicular. Nice corner product. Notice we're only hitting the top edge with this. Shoot that on. Now I'm going to come in here and shoot this again as perpendicular as I can to the edge. Not going into the bottom edge. Those dark specks will bounce back a little bit. I've got some all the way back in the here. That's normal. What you're looking for is when those black specks, or the darker specks, they may be white depending on the color, but in this case they're black, you'll start to see those stick on the surface. You won't see any holidays where you can see the white primer on this. You'll get a nice even coat. You'll have a nice smooth look to it. At that point, you've got a good texture base to start the process of finishing this. Normally, if you were painting, you would turn this, but you can't do that with the product, otherwise you'll tear the surface of it. Okay, now we're going to give it a shot for troweling. I'm spraying on the material. Normally I would use a larger trowel, but this is a fairly small area. I've got a mister bottle here. You can keep the top of this wet. A little fleck here that I don't want in there. Something out of my hopper. You can keep that top surface moist so you can trowel this out. But, like I say, trowels and me don't necessarily get along well. The nice thing, the reason I'm showing you this, is that you can do it. You can wet the top of that material. And keep working it. You don't want to get it too wet. But you also don't want it to dry. It's about 90 degrees today with really high or dry humidity. And one nice thing about this is you can do a different texture, well, except for when you drag it through it like I just did. Let me get your close-up on this. You can make a texture bit like orange peel on this, or what would be a worn stone that had been smoothed off on the top, and you can leave some texture behind. You can see where me and trowels don't necessarily like each other. I just drug my trowel through that. You can see here where I've got some thin spots. I'm going to have to trowel this back out. Add some more material in there. That's the only problem you have when you're putting the thinner, lighter colors on, for me I should say. The only problem I have generally is that I have a tendency to get some holidays because it looks like I've got good coverage, but I don't. Okay, we've got our edges all nice and finished. Got the bull noses rounded off and clean. Back edges smoothed out. Corners finished. That corner might need a little more work. Top edges done. Nice finishes here. Again, all along the front edges. Got a pretty good finish on this. And all we have to do is let it dry. As soon as that dries up, we'll take and put our top coat on, and we'll be ready to go.